I'm here with Dr. Akbar. He is the board president of Akron Public Schools in Akron, Ohio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's talk about board leadership at Akron School District.
Board leadership is very important. The community requires active and engaged members who are going to represent their interests and understand that in order to have the best equitable schools, you have to have voices from the community.
Okay.
So that board leadership is essential because it provides that voice and that connection to the community.
Right.
Board members in Akron, we're elected, and so we have a lot of ties with different entities and different communities throughout the city, and we hear from community members almost every day.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have to bring that voice and their experiences to the table to help make solid decisions.
What do those forums look like when you're having a conversation or communicating with the community? Do you have like a workshop? Are we doing this via social media? Like what is the platform that you have there?
A lot of times, the communications with the community is informal. It's someone you know that you've been connected with calls you about their child or something that's happening at the school that they're connected to that's in their community. It's could be someone you're connected to refers another student or another parent, mostly because of the challenges that they may be experiencing. With COVID and the pandemic, there's been a lot of different unique challenges that really has exacerbated some of the inequities that we see in our community that really were hidden in plain sight. From many people, and so it's illuminated those challenges, and we've been able to work through those challenges. But one of the biggest things that promotes equity is the lack of broadband access, and being able to expect every family to have the same amount of broadband capacity as everyone else, and that's difficult. We also have, unfortunately, when we went into the pandemic, made the assumption that the parents would be home. Well, the vast majority of our families are frontline workers in some way, shape, or form, and so they had to work even more than usual. And so having to juggle those realities and make good decisions are really what we've been faced with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about equity and the detours to equity.
Okay.
Can you share that with us?
Yes, definitely. Well, first we have to understand what equity is and what it isn't. It's not the talk and the rhetoric that's being put out there. It's also not necessarily equality. Equity is a continuous process in which you look at the system and how it impacts your students and your community, and whether or not there's a disparate impact for some communities over another. It's the constant process, and so you never get to a point where you achieve equity because you are acknowledging that there's a systemic problem that is inherent in just how we are built. Then you have to continuously work at it, because the way systems work is, and even think about the virus, right? So it mutates over time and becomes and has different variants, so that it can get stronger. It's protecting itself. The same thing happens with the system. As you dismantle and attack certain inequities to try to create better equity for students, other systems and processes come in place that you have to then go and address. So it's a continuous process that never stops. So we don't achieve at any point, but we always have to be working towards it.
Okay.
So I did forget to mention the detours. Just one detour that I really want to talk about, which is the pace for privilege. A lot of times when you have the conversation at the board level about getting equity and focusing on the policies that will help get you there, because that's our job, you get a lot of pushback, especially from administration and others, and a lot of times from different political leaders, that we have to pace for privilege. And that's an actual theory that comes out of Paul Gorski's book, that talks about the detours to racial equity. We have to slow down. We're moving too fast. We have to wait for those with privilege to see that we need equity before we move forward. And that's really not how equity works. You're never going to get there if you're continuously slowing things down or pushing things out for tomorrow. Let's do that tomorrow. That's how we got into the situation that we are in today.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. That brings light to a lot of ways that we look at things as far as trying to get to equity.
Yes, definitely.
And the quality of the education, right?
Yes, and people try to put equity, excellence, or quality or success as two separate entities when they're really one thing. You can't have true excellence, you can't have true success if you don't have true equity. If you're not embedding that into every decision that you make and into every theory of change that you have, it's not going to happen, because you can't truly have excellence without equity. They're not two separate things. Right.
They go together.
Yes.
So tell us about the decision-making process that went behind just coming up with the guidelines on how to tackle equity in your school district.
Yes. So it's important that board members are engaged in this work, because policy is what set that direction. The vision that the board promotes is what sets that direction. When we talk about strategic planning, the board, at the board level, that's where true equity will be set. And if you set that vision, if you set that strategic plan, if you make that a part of the goals, and the way you evaluate your superintendent, the way you evaluate your district, because that's your role as a board member, you'll get closer to equity in that process of systemic auditing and adjusting the ways in which we have our practices and policies in order to promote greater success for all students, greater opportunities where there's less disproportionality in our suspensions, where there's greater parity in advanced placement and CCP or College Credit Plus courses, or honors courses, or even gifted and talented courses. That's how you get there, and you have to be able to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations and say that we have to include this in every decision. And that includes in how we set the boundaries for what school that our students go to. It's every decision. You have to embed it, and it's difficult work because a lot of times we want to do what's convenient and what takes the least amount of time, but equity challenges the notion that convenience is best.
Okay. Why is this your fight?
Wow, that is a great question. So I grew up, so I have a PhD now, but I grew up with a speech impediment and a learning disability, and I could not read when I got to the third grade. And so I ended up, my family was transient, so we moved a lot in my earlier years. And I had to move one block away in order to be positioned in a whole different school system. I'm sorry, school district. So I went to a different elementary school. And that elementary school was the special ed specialty school. And that I ended up going to that school, and they saw me for who I was. They said I was a unique student with the ability to succeed. And that changed my trajectory altogether. And so it's my fight, because if I didn't have to move one block away and change schools, I wouldn't probably have the position that I have now. And so it's very personal to me that we provide the greatest opportunity for my story to not be an anomaly, but that it is one that everyone can possibly achieve.
Well, thank you for sharing that personal story.
Thank you for asking that
I
question.
know that there's someone out there that shares that same type of story that brought them to being involved in their school district and on their school board. So thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Can you tell our listeners where they can contact you, where they can find you for more information on your school policies on equity?
Yes. We actually, you can find our information on akronschools.com. We have, from what I was told, we were the first in the nation to declare racism as a public health crisis as a school district back in June of 2020. And so you can find that resolution there. And you can reach out to me at nakbar@apslearns.org, or you can find me on my Facebook page at Akbar for Akron.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Thank you for joining us today to listen to Dr. NJ Akbar.
Yes.
Yes. I am Alexis Flowers with issuesineducation.net. Thank you for listening.